Sirens still echoed faintly as I yanked off my radio earpiece and swung into the driveway, boots scuffing against the concrete. My uniform clung damp to my skin from Shelby Park pursuit, and I sprinted up the steps 2 at a time. The kitchen light was on, too bright for 1:03 a.m., and my phone's amber glow pulsed on the island. Before I even flicked off the radio, I saw the hotel logo voicemail icon blinking on the screen, one new message from a Charlotte hotel concierge. I dropped my duty belt by the door, handcuffs and baton rattling, a heavy reminder of the shift I'd just left behind. I swiped my badge ID off the counter, slipped it into my pocket, and pressed play on the voicemail. The concierge's voice rang clear and confident. "Mr. Lee's table is reserved for 1 at 12:30. Please confirm if Ms. Thompson will be joining him for lunch today at the Cardinal Hotel near Independence Park." A pause, then, "Thank you, Mr. Lee. We will see you shortly." The words slammed into me like a jarring broadcast. Ms. Thompson meant Natalie, my wife, my partner in raising 2 girls in South Park. I felt breath catch in my throat, pulse thrumming like an unrestrained cruiser on I-77. The kitchen's overhead light flickered as though shivering with truth. Cold coffee sloshed in my mug as I dropped it to the counter, the ceramic trembled before I yanked it away. My jaw clenched, trust crumbled into shards at my feet. I leaned against the island, pressing my palms into its polished wood. The photo hanging by the backsplash, Natalie and me grinning on Lake Norman last summer, felt like another lifetime. I traced her face with a fingertip, as if reassurance might flicker in her eyes again. But the concierge's final, "We will see you shortly," echoed like a verdict. I replayed what she'd texted earlier, late board meeting wrap-up with Marcus. "Don't wait up." Hours ago, I'd brushed off her financial strategy excuse without thought. Marcus Lee, divorced management consultant, was supposed to be a professional sounding board for her investment portfolios at Wellington Financial. I believed her, trusting her to tend our household budget, handle client portfolios, and coach our girls' soccer team. The voicemail shattered that trust. I steeled myself and headed toward the living room, where Emma and Harper slept under a pale moonbeam. Their midnight breaths reminded me what was at stake. That soft hum of childhood innocence anchored me as I sifted through the DVR remote, stopping on the blacked-out screen of the morning news. CMPD family stunned by rumor, Officer Thompson's wife, Natalie, linked to hotel rendezvous with Marcus Lee. My chest tightened further. Word had already spread through the department's wives' Facebook group, screenshots of that voicemail, frantic speculation about hotel lunches, hidden affairs, and betrayal. I closed my eyes, recalling our first night in this townhouse, Natalie singing lullabies to our newborns on that same battered couch, her voice weaving comfort through my exhaustion. Now those memories felt twisted, the harmony replaced by discordant suspicion. I switched off the news feed, moving back to the island and picking up the phone. I dialed Marcus Lee's number with hands that trembled more from fury than fatigue. 2 rings. No answer. I left a terse message, "This is Officer Benjamin Thompson. We need to talk. Expect a visit." I hung up and massaged my temples, the ache of betrayal settling deeper. Outside, Independence Park's oak trees swayed under street lamp glow, the same oaks where I imagined Natalie and Marcus might meet at noon. I shoved past these thoughts, snatched my cruiser keys from the counter, and bolted out the door. The humid August air hit me like a wall as I climbed into my squad car. I fished the voicemail up on my phone again, listening to the concierge's clipped professionalism, "Table for 1 at the Cardinal. 1 solitary seat, her seat, claimed by someone else." I slammed the door, engine rumbling to life. Brake lights behind me swallowed the quiet neighborhood. As I backed out, I rehearsed what I would say to her once I found her. "Who are you meeting, Natalie? Who are you leaving our children for?" My reflection in the rearview blasted back at me, eyes hollow, jaw set. The city stretched out before me, neon signs blinking promises I now doubted. My cruiser's siren switch glowed agonizingly dark. Tonight, I'd patrol a different beat, the unraveling of my own life. I guided the car toward the Cardinal, each turn through uptown Charlotte a reminder of all we'd built, 2 incomes, PTA fundraisers, Sunday brunches at the Fig Tree. But as traffic lights flicked green, then yellow, my heart pounded for a different reason entirely. The voicemail had detonated the facade of suburban bliss. Tomorrow, our daughters would wake to a new reality, their mother's name dragged through gossip and lies. Tonight, I'd confront her, and in the cold hum of the Cardinal's neon sign, I'd force Natalie to face the aftermath of her secrets. As the skyline blurred past my windshield, I braced for betrayal's reckoning, knowing there was no going back. I remember the first time Natalie stood on our South Park patio, hair swept back by a warm Charlotte breeze, and described how she balanced family life with her career as a financial planner. We had just watched Emma's soccer practice end under the glow of the floodlights, her cleats scuffing the turf as she high-fived teammates. Natalie, sharp-suited and always impeccably coiffed, smiled that evening, her eyes alight with pride as she ruffled our younger daughter Harper's curls. "I can help Boeing's 401k plan this afternoon, then catch up on our girls' FAFSA documents tonight," she said, voice brimming with confidence. I gripped her hand, the recent strains of my police shift still echoing in my chest, and felt deep gratitude. We were the picture of stability, two dedicated professionals raising two happy girls in Charlotte's most desirable neighborhood. Weekends were our sacred ritual. Saturday mornings found us at the Fresh Market in Park Road Shopping Center. Natalie would strategize budget projections on her iPad between sips of pressed juice while I negotiated produce prices for our family of 4. Later, we'd trail down to Villa Antonio for Sunday brunch, busy chatter swirling around us as we marveled at each other's success. I'd peel off my badge before breakfast and tuck my tie back into a paper napkin. Natalie reached across the table, gave my wrist a gentle squeeze, and whispered, "You keep this city safe, let me handle the numbers." When our full plates arrived, Belgian waffles for Emma, eggs Benedict for Harper, our daughters giggled over whipped cream mustaches. Those moments felt indestructible, as though nothing could ever fracture the life we'd built. Then came the frequent board meetings at Wellington Financial. What began as once-a-month strategy sessions evolved into late-evening retreats. I'd come home after roll call to an empty house, the girls tucked in, the front porch light left on for me. At first, I thought her absence was simply workload, but as the board meetings multiplied, hostile takeover simulations, market volatility drills, I started noticing small cracks. I'd find her planner left open on the kitchen counter, notations like, "Marcus, discuss Q3 projections," scribbled next to, "Call client at 6 p.m. Marcus Lee, I discovered, was a divorced management consultant with a penchant for charmed optimism and gray-salted hair. Natalie described him as, just a soundboard, 4 complex financial models, a resource I trusted because I'd seen his professional credentials. I nodded when she said, "He's helping me navigate this merger," unaware that those meetings created shadows between us. One evening, after an 8-hour narcotics shift, I returned to find lipstick faintly smeared on her coffee cup's rim. She caught me staring as I poured a cold beer for myself. "Ran out of makeup wipes at the studio," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "It's nothing." She offered her trademark reassuring smile, and I forgave the lipstick because her urgent client meeting at South Park Place that same night felt defensible. But my gut recoiled when I discovered an unaccounted $63 receipt from Bar Coco, a hotel bar near Independence Park, tucked behind her car keys. I confronted her that Sunday as we watched the girls chase a stray soccer ball in our backyard. She hummed a lullaby to quiet Emma, then said, "Marcus met me for a late consult. The hotel has complimentary beverages, so I grabbed a latte before heading home." I looked at her, my little family's matriarch, spilling secrets into a cup. I breathed in the warm spring air, and convinced myself, just a business expense sounded plausible. After all, trust meant granting each other space. Over the following weeks, more anomalies cropped up, hundreds of dollars billed to a conference services account, no calendar entries indicating travel. When I asked, she attributed it to executive training seminars at a boutique hotel downtown. I called the number on the receipt and waited for a desk clerk's friendly voice to confirm my wife's stay. Instead, the concierge said, "Miss Thompson was here with a Mr. Lee for lunch, Chardonnay and crab cakes, last Thursday, 12:30 p.m. My veins tightened. Natalie must have slipped home in time to tuck the girls into bed. When I mentioned the call, she started, then said, "Oh, I told Marcus I had to pick up the girls early. I didn't want him to think I was flaky, so I booked lunch and left." Her explanation felt threadbare, like an aged ledger missing key entries. I nodded, swallowing my unease as though it were bitter medicine. Then, one Thursday evening, I discovered a small silk scarf, too elegant for her boardroom attire, tangled in the back seat of her Mercedes. It wasn't one of ours, the print was unfamiliar, threads glinting gold. I shuffled through her glove compartment looking for answers, but found only travel-sized cosmetics and Invesco merger binders. I returned the scarf to her closet, nestled between her business suits. That night, I lay awake listening to the girls' breathing, my mind replaying the uncanny shapes that had crept into our perfect life, lipstick on a coffee mug, hotel bar receipts, and now a silk scarf suggesting someone else's embrace. I closed my eyes, wanting to believe her denials, but the tension in my chest made it impossible to find peace under our shared roof. By late summer, board meeting texts had grown urgent, peppered with exclamation points, Marcus, crunch numbers ASAP. Her phone buzzed in my pocket while I helped Emma tie her soccer cleats. A glance revealed a 10-page PDF labeled Q3 Risk Analysis from, shockingly, Marcus's email address. I swallowed, reminding myself, no, they were business partners. The girls needed their parents present. I refused to erupt in front of them. Still, the drive to the precinct felt colder each morning as I deployed my squad car down I-77, uniform pressed, heart weighed by suspicion. The phrase, professional support, felt like an echo chamber masking secrets I couldn't yet grasp. The most damning sign arrived one humid August evening when I walked into our kitchen, expecting to find Natalie in coaching mode, helping Harper with math flashcards for a school project. Instead, I found her cradling her laptop, its screen caught on a paused FaceTime window of Marcus leaning over a hotel desk. The desk was strewn with printouts of Charlotte's skyline and a Wellington Financial letterhead marked privileged. They smiled as though cementing a deal, not the kind of deal I thought they were making. My voice trembled when I asked, "When did you meet him in a hotel room?" Natalie's eyes went wide, the soft pink of her lipstick seemed suddenly jarring. She fumbled to explain, quoting a new client, but heat swelled in my chest like a wildfire. Beside her, the girls peeked around the counter, sensing the tension rising between us. I told myself to calm down, to let her explain. I summoned the restraint I'd learned on countless patrols, breathe, count to 10. But seeing them together, Natalie and Marcus, tangled in charts and late-night confessions, felt like betrayal incarnate. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a nod. "Explain it at home," I said, voice taut. I steered the girls upstairs, each polite, "Good night, Daddy," stabbed into my resolve. As I descended back to the kitchen, the final trace of our perfect duet unraveled, a silk scarf on the stove, a paused window on the laptop, and the echo of Natalie's heartbeat out of sync with mine. I cradled her coffee mug and tasted the sour residue of doubt. That night, the fortress of trust we'd built for our family felt perilously fragile, one hidden voicemail away from collapse. I woke one Wednesday morning to the aroma of roasted coffee drifting up from the kitchen, but it wasn't Natalie's usual blend. I stumbled downstairs, still half asleep, and found 2 room service espresso cups on the island, one with lipstick faintly stained on the rim. Natalie, styling her hair in front of the mirror, caught my gaze as I pulled out the drawer looking for creamer. Graphing client cash flow scenarios over lunch, she said brightly, lifting a caramel-tinted espresso to her lips. Marcus picked up the barista's tab. My chest tightened as I registered Marcus on her lips, knowing it wasn't our mutual friend from church. I pressed my fingers into my temples and forced a neutral nod. "Good luck," I said, hiding my unease. By late morning, I watched her climb into her Mercedes sedan, her tailored jacket crisp, briefcase in hand, phone pressed to her ear. She mouthed, "I love you," before slipping out, but my gut recoiled. The board meeting excuse had become a mantra. Each time her eyes lit up in response to a buzz on her phone, I suspected she was reading a text from Marcus rather than a colleague. I reminded myself, she was supporting our family's future, securing college funds, and teaching our girls the value of dedication. Yet the doubt nestled in my chest, each beat hammering its warning. Their lunches began 2 weeks ago, after a particularly tense board meeting at Wellington Financial, when Natalie confided in Marcus about a hostile takeover brewing in a client portfolio. He'd offered his divorced consultant ear, his knowledge of M&A strategy, and she'd gradually leaned on him, first for spreadsheets, then for empathy. After their third hotel lobby meetup, she returned to us with a wistful expression, claiming she'd just needed some time to think. But thinking had turned into afternoons at the Cardinal near Independence Park, where she and Marcus dissected asset performance between bites of salmon salad and glasses of Chardonnay. Their tones, my daughter's best friends once remarked on holiday visits, had grown secretive, as though they were sharing inside jokes rather than financial projections. One Friday, I worked a late shift at the precinct. I arrived home to find Natalie's laptop open on the coffee table, the screen paused on a spreadsheet titled, Q4 Growth Projections, Lee Consulting. I recognized Lee as Marcus but didn't know what their firm did. I clicked the folder and discovered subfolders labeled Charlotte Hotel Reimbursements and Holiday Client Retreat, 6/22, 6/24. My breath caught. A 3-day client retreat with Marcus's name attached suggested more than a simple professional liaison. I scrolled through the Charlotte Hotel Reimbursements subfolder, receipts from the Hilton Uptown, the Ballantine, and, most troubling, several lunch charges at the Cardinal in mid-June. Each receipt had her signature scribbled like a confession. My core heated. I closed the laptop before my trembling hands could smash the space bar. That weekend, I watched her from the garage as she kissed the girls goodbye for soccer practice, her perfume wafting in the spring air. She called Maggie, our babysitter, to say she'd be running errands, her house key left in the counter bowl like an abandoned alibi. I wished I could believe it was just a trip to the butcher shop. Instead, I grabbed the car keys, heart pounding, and followed at a safe distance. She pulled into the Cardinal parking lot at 11:57 a.m. I lurked 2 blocks away, sedan idling with the meter running, listening through binoculars to the faint echo of her laughter mixing with a deeper voice, Marcus's. I watched Marcus greet her with a subtle brush of his hand against the small of her back before they entered the lobby, arms brushing, voices hushed like conspirators. My throat closed as betrayal solidified into proof. I sat in the idling car, resisting the urge to confront them. I recalled her phone's lock screen, Marcus with a blue heart emoji. I scrolled through the last week's texts in my mind, need to review the merger docs over lunch, can't wait to see you, and the ghost of I miss you that often replaced I love you. By the time they emerged 50 minutes later, her hair looser, mascara slightly smudged, and his hand brushing back her stray locks, I felt cold fury and heartbreak in equal measure. She slid behind the wheel. I watched as they exchanged a lingering glance before she pulled away. I snapped a photo of the license plate and sent it anonymously to my friend Trevor in the department. In case you're curious, read the text. When he replied with, I'll take it from here, I knew the rumor mill was already grinding. That evening, at dinner in our South Park dining room, I summoned every scrap of composure I had. Our daughters chattered about their weekend tournament as Natalie served chicken Alfredo. I poured wine into my glass, something I'd never normally do before paperwork. She raised an eyebrow but smiled brightly at me. Tough day, she asked. I clinked my glass. Just decompressing, I lied, hiding the photo and receipts. Let's focus on the girls. She flashed one of her practiced smiles and joined in talking about travel arrangements for their summer soccer camp. But as I watched her twirl her fork and laugh at Emma's exaggerated stories, a layer of ice spread through my heart. Under that warm facade, I knew her secret lunch with Marcus had imprinted a fissure that could crack our lives. Late that night, I lay beside her in bed, her steady breathing a lullaby I no longer trusted. I stared at the faint glow of my phone resting on the nightstand, its voicemail icon still blinking, and felt a storm build in my chest. I told myself I'd wait to confront her until I had absolute proof, the hotel receipts, the email trails, and perhaps even a live recording of that voicemail. But as the house grew silent, I realized that each passing minute let Marcus's shadow creep deeper into our marriage. My sleep fled, replaced by a desperate plan to uncover the full extent of their deception before the next board meeting, a betrayal I could no longer ignore. I parked in the driveway just before 6 p.m., heart hammering like a 10 code on full blast. Natalie had told me she'd be home by 6 to help with dinner, our ritual after late shifts, so I expected her in leggings and a ponytail, rushing inside with grocery bags. Instead, I found her stepping out of her Mercedes in a tailored suit, hair flawlessly styled. She checked her phone as though expecting a text from me. My grip tightened on the storm door handle. I flicked it open without knocking. Ben, she said, startled. In her hand, she held a slim manila envelope embossed with the Wellington Financial logo. I picked up these quarterly reports for tomorrow's board meeting. Her sentence died as she saw the edge of a hotel receipt protruding from my coat pocket. Lipstick smudged on the receipt's corner. She gulped, eyes darting to the single rose I'd placed in a vase on the console, a rose I'd bought to surprise her at the garden club fundraiser. I stepped inside, closing the door so gently it was incongruous with the thunder in my chest. You lied to me, I said, voice low but steady, as though I were reciting charges. Board meeting lunch with Marcus Lee. Those were hotel lunches at the Cardinal, right? I slid the receipt across the console. It slid to the floor with a soft scrape. Her shoulders sagged as I crossed the room, eyes fixed on a framed photograph of our wedding day on the mantel, her in silk, me in uniform, beaming beneath a wisteria arch. I lifted it and turned it face down without a word, an execution. Natalie closed her eyes, fingers tightening on the envelope. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered, voice tremulous. He's just helped me through a tough time at work. She placed the quarterly reports on the coffee table, avoiding my gaze. Marcus understands the pressure. My gaze flicked to the hotel receipt I'd torn from her wallet, and to the phone on the couch, where a paused voicemail from the concierge lay waiting. Explain this, I said, voice taut, indicating the phone. She swallowed and tapped play. The concierge's voice floated through the speakers. Mr. Lee's table is reserved for 1 at 12:30. Please confirm if Ms. Thompson will be joining him for lunch today at the Cardinal. Then a soft click and a muted "thank you." The girls' soccer team photos in the hallway blurred as my vision narrowed. Natalie's gasp echoed in the living room. Forecast meeting, Ben. It's just professional, she stammered. We examined investment models while eating. But in the next room, our daughter's giggling voices faded. I held up a second hotel receipt I'd tucked into the photo frame. Same date, salted linguine, Chardonnay, tip. You've been to the Cardinal at least 5 times this month, I said, voice breaking slightly. I trusted you when you said, work. Where were you really? The rose on the console had wilted, petals curling like the truth I was crushing. Tears welled in her eyes as she sank onto the couch, muttering, "It's not like that. I swear." She clutched the reports to her chest as though they could shield her. I knelt in front of her, forcing myself to meet her gaze. Am I a fool? My voice cracked. You think I don't see how he looks at you? How you look back? I held the flattened photo frame in front of her, image now obscured. We built a life, 2 daughters, a home, a future. Everything I ever worked for. You traded it for lunch dates and whispers in hotel lobbies. Her tears fell silently as I unfolded the manila envelope and placed it next to her on the coffee table, a printed screenshot of her text to Marcus, "Can't wait to see you at 12:30. I need you." She buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry, Ben. But sorry sounded empty, like the dinner table I'd set for 4 that now sat strewn with evidence of her betrayal. I rose and crouched by the mantel, placing my hand on the wedding photo's blank back. This was every promise we made, I said, voice hushed. And you broke it. My hand tightened on the frame, echoing the finality of my words. Natalie tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. There's one more thing, I said, pulling a printed screenshot from my pocket, a message from the CMPD Wives Facebook group, screenshotted mid-spread. Did you see Natalie Thompson's voicemail? Lunch date with Marcus Lee. Alongside it, comments ranging from shameful to chief's wife scandal, scrolled like acid. She looked up, eyes red raw, realizing her secret had become a spectacle. I didn't want them to know, she croaked. Not like this. I nodded, swallowing. Too late. I walked to the front door, pausing to lock eyes with her. Our girls deserve better than whispers and rumors. I stepped outside into the humid evening, leaving her in the hush of our dismantled home. I closed the door behind me, the click sounding like a gavel sealing our fate. On the porch, neighbors' lights winked on, blind to the private tempest. I exhaled, the tension draining from my shoulders as though the weight of betrayal had been lifted by a silent resignation. In that charged air, I resolved to shield our daughters, no matter the cost. As the door shut, I looked down at my hands, fingers steadier now, and whispered, "Game over." The divorce was finalized just before Christmas, the Carolina ewes stripped bare and the air crisp with winter's chill. In court, Natalie relinquished any claim to our South Park townhouse and agreed to supervised visitation at her parents' home. I was granted primary physical custody of Emma and Harper, with Natalie ordered to cover half of their daycare and extracurricular costs. Her license as a financial planner was suspended pending an inquiry into the hotel reimbursements she'd submitted under false pretenses. In one swift legal stroke, the life we built unraveled, but as the judge signed the decree, I felt a fragile sense of relief. My daughter's future was secure. At our modest Belmont apartment, I watched Emma and Harper untangle Christmas lights and collapse onto the couch in peals of laughter as I assembled a simple tree in the corner. Their joy filled the room, brushing away the ache in my chest. Wrapping my arms around them, I whispered, "We're safe, okay." Their nods and bright smiles reminded me why I'd fought so hard. By January, I swapped my cruiser for a whistle and hardwood floor, volunteering at the South Park Boys and Girls Club to coach youth basketball twice a week. Guiding kids through dribbles and layups felt like a balm, another way to protect and uplift the community, just off the streets. One afternoon, when a boy named Marcus asked, "Coach, is it ever okay to start over after something bad happens?" I paused mid-drill, rested the ball on my hip, and nodded. Absolutely. Sometimes you rebuild your team to win the championship. At home, I established new routines: Saturday pancake breakfasts at the kitchen island, fluffy buttermilk stacks with fresh berries, followed by snow day trips to Freedom Park for sledding whenever it snowed. Bedtimes became chapter book rituals. I read aloud while the girls' eyelids fluttered shut. When Harper asked why Mommy can't sleep here, I knelt beside her, gently explaining, she needs time to find her way back to us. But she loves you very much. Their small heads nodded before turning to their dreams. By late February, Natalie's supervised visits moved to bi-weekly sessions at her mother's house. On the day of her first visit, I drove Emma and Harper to South Park Place, where Natalie waited in an elegant dark coat. The girls ran to her, clutching, "I love you, Mommy," cards. From behind, I watched her embrace them, then turned and left without a word. That single wave she offered, hesitant, full of longing, felt like hope flickering amidst the ashes of our marriage. Spring arrived and our Belmont walls filled with the girls' artwork, rainbows, stick figure families, hearts bursting with color. Emma joined a new youth hockey league, and I mastered the art of smoothing down her shoulder pads. Harper's budding talent for painting filled me with pride. Neighbors and church friends rallied around us with casseroles, birthday balloons, and warm encouragement, reminding us that community could help mend broken hearts. One Sunday night, after tucking the girls into freshly laundered sheets, I sat at my desk and drafted a post for Dad's blog, New Beginnings. Titled, Building from Scratch, it reflected on honesty, accountability, and the promise of renewal. I attached a photo of Emma and Harper celebrating their first goal at soccer practice, grins wide beneath soccer jerseys. Comments poured in, "Thank you for sharing your story, you're not alone, inspiring and real." In their words, I found affirmation that our journey, painful as it was, could foster healing for others. Months later, I slipped into my uniform again for the first time since the divorce, belt and badge gleaming. At roll call, colleagues greeted me with pats on the back. As I drove past Independence Park, the air smelled faintly of honeysuckle, and I no longer saw betrayal in its shadows. Instead, I felt a steady resolve. Though our family's world had fractured, we had built something stronger in its place, one sunrise, one honest step at a time.